Bang. Okay, so Becky Lynch is going to challenge Ronda Rousey for the title at WrestleMania. So the main event will be, I presume, Becky Lynch versus Ronda Rousey at WrestleMania. And if you remember, do you remember like a while ago I did a video, I think it was in the summer, wasn't it, where I talked about Charlotte Flair headlining against Ronda Rousey, and that I had heard from people who go to WrestleMania every year, and that they had, you know, when you go to these shows, apparently they have people that do surveys and they like record, film stuff, they're from the company, and they were kind of nudging them in the direction of saying Charlotte Flair and Ronda Rousey. Actually, I remember quite a few of my friends who were there, a couple of them were asked flat out about that, which seemed to imply and indicate that that's what was happening. But things happened, plans changed, and Becky Lynch, who I've always liked and was actually a very popular wrestler to begin with, and a very likeable person, I heard an interview she did on the Steve Austin show, has really turned this in her favour. So she, at the beginning of the year, was not featured as much. In fact, she was off TV for a bit at one point, I remember. Came back, had the feud with Carmella. Charlotte was inserted into the feud, and that was the beginning of when fans, I want to say, flipped the script on the company. Company wanted Charlotte, and in a way they still will get Charlotte, but we, the people, wanted Becky Lynch. So we got Becky Lynch. And if you remember at SummerSlam, the fans were fuming. It was a little bit not far off from what happened with Daniel Bryan. They were angry that Charlotte won at SummerSlam. They cheered Becky, they booed Charlotte. And even though they tried to turn it and make Becky a heel, fans would still cheer for Becky and they would jeer Charlotte. And Becky did get her run. She got the belt. And a lot of people were like, oh gosh, what if they do this thing where Becky's the transitional champion throughout the autumn, loses the belt, and then they still do Charlotte and Ronda Rousey, which they have done. And they have done that. What if they do that and then Becky's the forgotten woman, or the man, as she now calls herself? And then what happened. Just leading up to Survivor Series, they announced Becky versus Ronda, which, to be honest, was very interesting when they announced it, because that's a match I never thought I'd see. Take note, when it's a match that people never think they're going to see, and you have the ability to make that happen, you'll make money. But what happened is these unfortunate events, and you'll notice this with her, these unfortunate events that she somehow works into her favour. So she does the run-in, takes out Ronda Rousey, which I think made her look absolutely great. I mean, that enhanced her quite a bit. Takes that really unfortunate punch from Nia Jax, which was a little bit more real than it needed to be. Ended up really damaging her face. And there was that great image of a very fired up, very, I want to say rowdy Becky Lynch with her arms out with the blood on her face, which is becoming quite the iconic picture. There are women cosplaying doing that, you know that, by the way. Go have a look online, you'll see it, people. But that's the thing. That's the cultural impact she's starting to have. I said this ages ago where, you know, the most over wrestlers are the wrestlers that have the ability to become real needle movers, start to influence people in the outside world where they are copying them and imitating them. And that's one thing. Alright, granted it's cosplay, and most cosplayers that I know of will watch wrestling or comic books or films, but you're starting to see her image and likeness, you know, get bigger and bigger and bigger. And they did Charlotte versus Ronda at Survivor Series, and that was a great match, and I loved the way that ended. And it definitely seemed like they're going to do Becky and Ronda. They're definitely going to do Becky and Ronda. And it felt like, and it feels like, we're being listened to, and that's a good thing. And for all the things that I've said about the company, it's good to feel like we're being listened to, which is what we've said for the longest time. And it feels like, to some extent, or in this case, they have learned the lesson from what happened with Daniel Bryan. Because if they didn't do Becky Lynch at the Royal Rumble, could you imagine if she just lost to Asuka and then wasn't in the Women's Royal Rumble and didn't win? Could you imagine? Could you imagine how stupid the company would have looked and how the fans would have been? Those fans would have torn torn that place apart, to be honest with you. So it's a really good thing that they're doing it. So Becky wins the Royal Rumble. It's so popular right now. I think the ability for her to become a needle mover is there right now. It's for the taking. It's hers. Let's just hope that the company don't do anything daft with her and they continue to play to her strengths and she continues to step up in the ways that she has done in the last year and turns these things in her favour. I really like that she's been able to do that. That's quite an admirable trait about her. One of the many things that I think has made fans gravitate towards her. She's this underdog character. She's quite fiery, but at the same time she will turn things to her favour. And I really like that about her. And it was interesting because she came out, well, Ronda came out, and as anyone so eloquently put it on Twitter, flipped out when the crowd were not cheering for her. I did watch that and she fluffed her lines and she looked agitated by the crowd when the crowd were giving her a hard time. You could see she was agitated, and it looked like to me she was supposed to call out Bayley, but then they just sent Bayley out to kind of just move on quickly. But there were jeers and there were boos, and then when Becky came out, I expected it 100% in favour of Becky, and they were jeering Ronda, and Ronda looked rattled by that. She did her part well, but it makes me a little bit worried that we may get the Ronda who left the UFC in the way that she did, imagine in the WWE. So, but listen, I'm happy. I'm happy. We get a main event, we get a fresh main event, a main event that we've never seen before, and this is what I talked about years ago on my channel. Years and years and years and years ago. I said, they need to make new stars. They need to make new stars. They need to make new stars. They need to build their tag teams, and they need to put themselves in a position where their tag teams could sometimes main event shows. They need to build up the Intercontinental title and the US title, the Cruiserweight title. So if you don't have the WWE champion, like a John Cena there, you have guys who have things that are valued so high that it's not that much of a step down, or it's considered on the level of. And they needed to do that. And I said that also about the women's division. And I mean, it's ridiculous when you were watching MMA and you could see Gina Carano and Chris Cyborg and then Ronda and Misha Tate and Holly Holm and Amanda Nunes headline pay-per-views, and the WWE was still quite reluctant at that time. And now, obviously, in the last 2 years, they have kind of geared towards that. And that's what I'm talking about. Fresh main events, different scenarios where, I don't want to watch, and I do like Cena, but I don't want to see Cena in every main event of every pay-per-view. Let's mix it up. Let's make things interesting. Let's have some fun. Let's make some money too. And I'm really relieved. Now, it'd be very interesting to see how the crowd reacts to Ronda going forward, because Ronda has shown that she gets rattled and she does react, and it will be interesting. They're going to have to really work with her on that, so that's going to be something to keep an eye on. But I am almost talking myself out and out to death, so I'm going to stop right now. I'm back. I will talk about some MMA. I haven't forgotten MMA, guys. I have not forgotten MMA, so I will talk about some MMA very, very soon. And check out my Royal Rumble video. I will put that in one of the two sides over here. I will put that Charlotte Flair Ronda Rousey video because it's interesting to watch now, given everything that's happened. So comment down below, give us a like, give us a subscribe, and I am finished. See you soon.